Hideo Kojima shares his unexpected thoughts on James Gunn's Superman, praising its Iggy Pop song while questioning the film's spirit and tone. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video game auteur Hideo Kojima is not a stranger to cinematic storytelling, and his criticism of the recent Superman isn't exactly about the performances or plot points, but how the movie felt and where it stood in a thematic sense. Hideo Kojima, the game designer behind Metal Gear and Death Stranding, has weighed in on James Gunn's Superman, and it's not what most fans of the movie would expect. He watched the DCU reboot after returning from his world tour, and as per his post on X, formerly Twitter, Kojima believes that the movie itself wasn't punk. Superman stars David Corenswet as the titular hero, with Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. At large, the movie has been praised for its tonal shift from previous iterations of the DC character, but it didn't sit right with some viewers, Kojima being one of them. Hideo Kojima, the game designer behind Metal Gear and Death Stranding, has weighed in on James Gunn's Superman, and it's not what most fans of the movie would expect. He watched the DCU reboot after returning from his world tour, and as per his post on X, formerly Twitter, Kojima believes that the movie itself wasn't punk. Superman stars David Corenswet as the titular hero, with Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. At large, the movie has been praised for its tonal shift from previous iterations of the DC character, but it didn't sit right with some viewers, Kojima being one of them. But he had at least one positive thing to say about it, and that's the Iggy Pop song in the closing credits. Punk Rocker has already been trending on music platforms and is being widely used in every other fan edit of Superman circulating across social media, asserting how the feature promotes kindness. So, it seems like that's one element of the movie that everyone seems to love. Rather than being something larger than life, and a hero we could look up to, Kojima felt that we were simply just looking at Superman, standing beside him rather than beneath. He highlighted how this shift treated the character not as a god, but as a man who is navigating both identities. Superman may seem like a human story and not a power fantasy, but it's refreshing to see that a mainstream superhero movie is provoking such layered conversations on the internet. And we also have inputs from creatives who aren't from the usual Hollywood circles, which is great for taking the dialogue forward. Let's not see his take as a seal of approval or disapproval, but a thoughtful breakdown. But what do you think? Was Kojima spot on, or do you still view Corenswet's Superman the way you always did? Traditionally, Superman is the epitome of power and morality, and it's someone we look up to, both in a figurative and literal sense. But Hideo Kojima makes the point that James Gunn's Superman turns the mythic figure into a grounded character. So, Gunn went for emotional accessibility over us being in awe. It's a bold move because the character has often been seen as too perfect, so by stripping back his grandeur, the director, in a way, has finally cracked the code for modernizing Superman for our generation. If we consider Kojima's cultural lens and understand that, due to being a creative at heart, he probably sees things through structure and symbolism, it makes sense that he would want the movie to be in line with his ethos. But it's also important to note that with changing times, people would appreciate different and fitting qualities from superheroes and their lore. James Gunn's Superman features a 12-minute dialogue scene that became his favorite moment, offering emotional depth rarely seen in superhero movies. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Speaking with Josh Horowitz, James Gunn addressed his unprecedented 12-minute talking scene between Lois Lane and Clark Kent. During the discussion, the filmmaker revealed that the scene had barely changed from the time he first wrote it. According to Gunn, the final version used in the movie is almost exactly the same as the one they screen tested. Perhaps a few lines or two were trimmed, but the overall structure, dialogue, and shots stayed true to the original idea. That alone shows how confident he was in this scene. Now, what made that scene even more interesting is how James Gunn treated both characters equally. He didn't just make Superman the obvious hero or Lois the one who's always right. Instead, he made sure both characters had valid arguments. In that scene, he made Lois Lane stand for truth and practicality, while Clark Kent focused on the value of life and doing the right thing. These are two very different yet important ways of seeing the world, and Gunn wanted both to be respected in the scene. Part of that also shows just like how each of these characters comes across in the scene. I mean, when I wrote the scene and I look at the scene myself, I see both their points of view. I see Lois's point of view. I see, his point of view. She's talking about truth and he's talking about life, right? Both important values and both their key important values in their lives. James Gunn shared that when he watches the scene, he sees both sides clearly. He agrees with both of them at different moments, and that's what makes the scene work so well. Lois questions the consequences of Superman's actions, whereas Clark believes that saving lives in the moment is always the right thing to do. In a world where superhero movies are often filled with punches and explosions, James Gunn flipped the script, literally. His newly released Superman film isn't just packed with epic battles and alien threats, it also features a 12-minute conversation. Yes, just a raw, dialogue-heavy discussion between Lois Lane and Clark Kent. No action, just a deep dive into truth, morality, and the meaning of life. It's the kind of creative risk that most superhero directors don't dare to take. However, for James Gunn, it became not only a standout moment in the film but also his personal favorite. During an interview with Josh Horowitz, Gunn admitted this talking scene was the biggest gamble of the movie, because superhero fans aren't used to sitting still that long unless a city is crumbling. Josh Horowitz asked, "What was the biggest risk you took creatively?" James Gunn responded, "The biggest risk I took was putting a 12-minute talking scene in a superhero movie. There's just no doubt. It's fantastic. It's probably my favorite scene in the film. If I haven't seen it as many times as I have, and if I ever have to see it again, I'll jump out that window. So let's check out what makes it so special. Because, as per Gunn, it's the most honest, nuanced, and surprisingly human scene throughout the movie." And not to mention, the director also cited this heavy conversation as the loudest moment in his superhero movie. Further into the conversation, James Gunn admitted that while both Lois Lane and Clark Kent make strong points, most people naturally agree with Superman. After all, Clark represents our moral compass. He believes saving lives is the top priority, even if it means rushing in without knowing all the details. By letting both characters speak their minds and showing their perspectives honestly, James Gunn brought out a rare emotional depth in his superhero movie. He wasn't interested in who was right or wrong. He wanted to show a real debate between two smart, passionate people who care about doing what's best. In the scene, we can see how she questions Superman's methods, wondering if his actions might actually lead to more harm than good. Her thinking is based on real-world consequences, not just good intentions. This is what makes the conversation more balanced and believable. Through this debate, Gunn gave us a fresh look at Superman. This view is inspiring, and it reflects the kind of hero people look up to. But James Gunn also pointed out that this mindset can sometimes be too simple. That's why he had to carefully adjust the scene during editing. He didn't want Superman to feel one-dimensional. So, he made sure Lois's voice remained strong and logical instead of making